All right, hello everybody. It's the Meista from Brews and Tunes. Cheers. I am insanely excited today. I am chatting with uh, some really cool heavy metal maniacs right now from Occumancy. Did I pronounce that correctly?
You did.
Excellent. I am chatting with Chuck Sherwood, bass player and vocalist and lyricist of Occumancy, as well as Nick Smolenski. Hopefully, I pronounced that correctly.
Close enough.
Close. Thank you. Guitar player from Occumancy. Thank you guys so much for joining me. This is really exciting for me to be chatting with you tonight.
Well, thank you, Victor, for having us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So let's talk about this album, which is fucking amazing, if I may say. Really killer stuff. We were chatting earlier about this prior to the interview. One thing I really love about this album is it's not something you can really pin down in terms of, because I kind of get sick of the genre game in a lot of ways, but I love the fact that it's this very complex, very avant-garde, if you will, metal album that has all these nuances and all these interesting things happening with black metal and death metal and thrash metal and I would even say elements of jazz, possibly. I mean, just really intricate, really interesting music. Probably some of the more challenging music that I've heard in a long time. And I'm really obsessed with it since I picked it up. So I'd love to get your kind of thoughts on your approach and kind of how this all started. I know that's kind of a loaded question, but
no, it's fine. We had a bio posted, so I might end up mirroring that a little bit. But back when we were touring for the Vanquish and Vengeance tour, we were on a run with Immolation in Brazil. And while in the shuttle, just going from point A to point B, an idea had surfaced that we, in the band, the four of us would create our own lineups and do a 7-inch, 2 songs per person with their respected peoples. And then we would have it in a box set very similar to the Kiss solo albums.
Cool.
And at the time it was just kind of like, oh yeah, we could do that. Or that's a cool idea, but it got shelved. Life intervened, other things took precedent, and we didn't get an opportunity to really do it so much. But I created the 2 songs, Animus Harbinger and Host of Gaunts was created at that time. The other subsequent band actually became Shed the Skin, come to think of it. The material, thank you very much for your kind words in regards to it. It's that when you mentioned all of the different styles and everything, that was something that I wanted to really push with this project in particular. It's all of the different influences that I always wanted to hear. It is everything from black metal to thrash to heavy metal to even classical elements and stuff like that. But it's made into its own specific way. Not so much to plagiarize all of those greats, because I can't do better than what they did, but to make it into a form of aggressive and raw material that fans of any genre in the metal community would find something that they would relate with. I hope that the music translates as such, because the following songs that I added to it, knowing that the 7-inch box set wasn't going to work, I just kind of added more and more elements of all the different things that I always wanted to hear in other bands too.
Yeah, so. And I think that definitely comes across and definitely works. Like I said, I love listening to something that's where you have to sit down, because it's not background music. It's like, wow, this is really intense and really complex and really engaging. And that was immediately, in fact, I probably shouldn't admit this. I was at work at the time. Yeah, I stopped working because when I first downloaded the album, like, wow, this is incredible. This is really insane. This is something I have not heard really ever. I think in a lot of ways. And
hope I don't receive messages from your boss.
yeah. Hopefully not. Hopefully not. Yeah, and I was really kind of curious about the writing and kind of how this all came to be in a lot of ways, and the involvement of Nick and of course the drummer Frank, and kind of how this all transpired as far as building into what became Occumancy.
So as the title pretty much says, so if you're necromancy, magic of the dead, this was Occumancy, or magic of the eye, but not so much eyeball, but third eye. These were mostly dreams that I had, and it was always a wealth of inspiration with Incantation over the past 13 years, really, that if there was something that was profound enough, I would translate it into a lyrical content. And this was no different. These were even more parts of either reoccurring dreams or things that are even all the way stretching back into childhood, that you can take it as you will. Do you know what I mean? People that have like a nightmare can have it from bad chili, you know what I mean? Or,
Right.
Or getting too drunk that night and having dreams, or, you can chalk it up to whatever excuse you want. But then there are those that actually you can't pinpoint. Those are the ones that are enough for me as an influence. So I'm hoping that the what you get out of it is what you'll get out of it. You know what I mean? If I was to explain them all with extreme detail, it would then all of a sudden be self-focused, to where you yourself can read the lyrics, experience it how you would, and take what you want from it.
Nice. Well, and I think that's something that's always attracted me to your lyrics anyway with Incantation. Was it's a, I don't know how to put it exactly, but yeah, this kind of almost like nightmare dreamscape, kind of Lovecraftian element.
That is very accurate. Lovecraft is my favorite author.
Oh, nice. Very cool.
I even have like a portion of a half sleeve devoted just to his works.
Oh, great.
I grew up with reading his short tales, and they do play a very huge influence on me.
Nice.
Now that I'm thinking of this, that you were asking in regards to how the lineup was formed.
Yeah.
Nick and I have been playing in bands together since what year do you think, Nick?
High school, I think, was our first one, maybe sophomore high school.
Oh, wow.
Because I met you in freshman year of high school, and then we had a different bass player at the time. It was just like kids, like high school kid garage band. Like, we wrote some songs and played a bunch of Metallica songs and Slayer, and played a couple block parties. But it was more like just kids hanging out, and then so we've known each other for
almost 30 years.
Almost 30 years, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
And then he was doing a bunch of other things, and I was doing a couple other things as well. And then we kind of were in another band together, probably in, oh man, I don't even remember when that band was. That was
probably early
years.
2000s.
Probably early 2000s.
And then it also had a lull, and then we did like a thrash hardcore kind of together for a few years as well, with mutual high school friends.
Mm-hmm.
And then when this material presented itself and I knew that I had to generate my own lineup, it was a no-brainer. I was going to ask Nick no matter what. And knowing him for how I know him, he was like, yeah, I got you. And he, I mean, exceptional.
Oh yeah.
We had done numerous songs in just a few takes, and it was a pleasure to work with him. It always is, and I knew that he could do an exceptional job, and well, he certainly did, because the recording in and of itself is a testament to it. And, whether it be acoustic, the rhythm sections, even solo and the like. He excels at what he does, and I'm proud to have him.
Yeah. I that was one of the things that, like, really, for me, when I first, and from like the opening song, I think too, really, it's that kind of trying to think of the right words for kind of haunting, this kind of darkly beautiful melodic, melodies that you're playing, Nick. These, it harkens back to, kind of old school black metal, the Norwegian style of black metal, just these really haunting, kind of epic. And I'm not a musician, but this your vibrato. I mean, I don't know. I was transfixed, really, in a lot of ways. Like, just hearing that, from right off the bat, like I said, kind of those opening notes, like, wow, this is really amazing, like, really, mesmerizing. I guess maybe that's the word I'm looking for, is really mesmerizing. And then there's this, just intensity of, the drive of the music in itself. And then lyrically, you're like, oh my God, it's, it's Chuck Sherwood. It's this brilliant, crazy, insane, dark, otherworldly kind of, what's the right term, like cosmic terror, I guess you would say, or cosmic horror, of like Lovecraft, or William Hope, I forget his last name, but kind of that I don't know, it really, I was transfixed from the get-go.
You have your what is it, like Robert Bloch, August Derleth, like the list goes on. But but then with the advent of Frank, his entry into the project was, he was working with Funerus at the time.
Oh, cool.
Work for them, and we went out on a number of tours together. And then we were lucky enough to actually have him involved as a session member for Incantation for a few years as well. And while we were out and about, I believe we were actually at the Phantasmagoria in Atlanta. And I asked him if he was interested, and played him the material that Nick and I had pieced together. And he was like, yeah, without a doubt. And what his application to the material changed even certain arrangements for myself to match his playability, and the way that he would enter certain riffs or certain transitions or certain fills. Right. You want to, have that very solid rhythm section, and he just he's a machine. And
that's a monster.
It's not just his musicianship, but also like his extreme devotion to the project. He helped in very, very many ways. Engineering wise, he helped as well. And being like ignorant or a novice to some of these procedures, he knows it through and through, and was able to help in such a way that I would not have been able to have this out without Nick and Frank's contributions. And it's huge. It means a lot to me.
Yeah, it's like I said before, I mean, just incredibly impactful music. It's definitely not background music. It's something you need to sit down, like, from those opening notes. It's something you sit down and you stop doing what you're doing and you listen to it.
Like that first song in particular was never have like a structure. And there are certain portions of all 6 songs where it floats, I guess is the best way to say it, where it bottoms out and you would expect maybe a consistent beat would enter, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
Where a rhythmic pattern would then lead to something else, but it still doesn't. It's that I wanted that same quality of how a dreamscape is, where it's always shifting, it's always changing. That would be a musical translation of it. That music, at least in this particular project, needs to shift and move. The tempos need to drastically change, because that's how the brain would work.
Yeah, I think too, like for me, like I appreciate what you were saying about the playing and everything, and I think that given the fact that, I mean, you know, Chuck pretty much had all the ideas that he wanted, like all the music, like pretty much blueprint, and then was like, here's what I want you to do. And then we would kind of collaborate a little bit, like, oh, maybe we should add a harmony here. Maybe we should try this effect or something like that. So, but it really, like, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact, and, you know, this is just my opinion. So, like, Chuck is a bass player and a phenomenal bass player at that. And so he's writing these really, like, wild, intricate guitar parts, because I assume it's because he's a bass player, and some of the stuff I was like, what is this? Like, like, how did you come up with this? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make sense. It sounds awesome, but, you know, so it was definitely, like, it was challenging for sure to play some of the stuff, because, like, my mind as a guitar player is like, oh, I don't know about that, but yeah, I mean, he you know, he wrote some killer stuff, and I was just stoked to be asked to be a part of it. So it was awesome.
Nice. Yeah. When you say that, Nick, yeah, going into the studio, was there a point where you're like, what the fuck? What I don't. What are you? What are your thoughts here, Chuck? What's happening?
Yeah, really, you know, he had like some demos that he sent me, and was like, you know, when we first started talking about, obviously, you know, we've been friends for so long, like we hang out, you know, a bunch and stuff, like regardless of the project. And he, you know, when he asked me to do it, and he started sending me like demos, like, well, I have this song, and, you know, here, you know, take a listen. And, you know, again, he's a bass player, you know, so playing the demos and stuff was interesting to listen to. But I kind of had an idea of like what he was going for, and, you know, I just tried to do the best that I could for him, and try and add a couple little things here and there, like, oh, this would be cool if we tried this, or maybe change this part, or make this part longer, or whatever. But yeah, those, I mean, it really, like,
those are the very elements that I liked so much too, is that you know, just like being an Incantation, that whenever we present things, it's an egoless, you know, open to constructive criticism kind of situation. And it's not it's like the entity of the project becomes larger than the sum of its parts. And, right, you know, when we as individuals contribute, it becomes like a blending. You know, there would be times where if I wrote something and it was overtly notey, I remember John just saying, I like what you're doing, but then just wait a minute. And he would play the exact same notation, the exact same timing, but he stretched it. And this, he did it, I started, you know, I was like, And he says, you like that, don't you? And I'm like, yes. It was the same exact thing where I was presenting a certain riff to Nick, and he said it was the harmony in Animus Harbinger. He went, that deserves a harmony. And I said, I'm going to probably try to drop out and allow this harmony to feed on itself, and it's before a massive tempo change. And instead of having like a break or a 4 count, it's this fading harmony, like a couple counts, and then the change happens. And it was masterful on Nick's end, because he's like, yep. And then he's trying for a harmony. Nope, not that one. Nope, not that one. Nope, not that. Aha. And he's like, what does it sound like? I'm like, do it. You know, and we're quick writing all the tablature out in order to reference it later. And it turned into what it did. And yeah, that was fantastic. It was a great transition.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think that's a beautiful thing, is that collaborative, like really organic collaborative effort, I think is what makes music, and especially extreme metal, really fascinating for me, is that kind of collaboration and that organic. And you can really tell, I think, on an album when that has happened as a listener. Sometimes when there's something, it feels very natural and very organic, and like it's not forced. It's just, this is how this song progresses. And I think you guys have really nailed that, more so than a lot of bands in this day and age, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that too. Like, we didn't really have to rush. I mean, we didn't want it to take 5 years, I think was like the timeline, but we really didn't have to rush on it, which I think helped too, because we could sit on things and try different things, and if it didn't work, it didn't work, or what have you. But like, we would get together and record for 4 or 5 hours, and come back, meet up like another 3 weeks or so, and see how we feel about it, and go on to different stuff, or so I think that maybe helped a little bit too, that we had some time to just kind of like let everything breathe, and kind of go back and forth a bunch, even on stuff that maybe we were finished and we were listening to, just being like, well, I don't know about that, maybe we can do something better or whatever. So I think that kind of helped too. Not that we wanted it to be like a 5-year process, because I know it was
there was a number of like things that were beyond our power that delayed.
Yeah.
And I know that when it came to like the contribution of so many different soloists, my idea was that I did want each song to be individualistic within the confines of the EP, and best way would be either to like have a different vocalist, or have a different guitarist, or have a different solo. So I stuck with the solo, and all of the people that it helped are all good friends, great musicians, extreme talent. And believe it or not, the first song in particular was actually done by Nick's brother, because Nick and Mike were in the first band I ever played with. So I always wanted to do something with him as well, and I'm just glad that he was able to contribute, and he contributed fantastically. He does a great performance on it.
Yeah.
Also, my really super close friend Alex Books, he also contributed on the Host of Gaunt's song, and it's just that I mean, I met him in high school as well, and now you flash forward, and we played together with Incantation, and then to have his involvement with this. And I even did a session for Agoraphobia at one time. It was one show,
cool.
But their last show at the time. And for me, it was like, I want to give back to him another opportunity that he gave me.
Nice.
And he did an exceptional job.
Yeah.
Dan Gonzalez, I met actually on the 70,000 Tons of Metal cruise when we were playing that, and got to talking to him and asked him sort of out of the blue if he would be interested in doing so, and he turned it over in a matter of days. And his work is, again, it's like I can't say enough. It's exceptional.
Yeah, it's sick.
Likewise with my friend Ash Thomas, and I mean, the guy's like a musical genius. You know what I mean? He plays absolutely every single instrument under the sun, and there's no words be said. The guy's a genius. So when I presented him one of the more difficult songs to follow, it was also like a strange time signature. Again, like in a matter of days. He just turned it right over, and it was perfect. I mean, there was nothing I could do to it. I was like, what do you want done with it? And he's like, well, just add a little, was it reverb or something, and that was it. And before you know it, everything was ready to go. But it is time consuming. Everybody's got lives, everybody's got schedules. And we had an engineering. I wouldn't say necessarily like troubles, but a bump in the road, and that created a delay as well. And it was followed up with a VJS, another great friend of mine, who also contributed solo-wise, and he knocked it out of the park. We gave him the rough waves, and he turned back mixes, and then even mastered it in both CD and vinyl forms for us as well.
Oh wow!
Out of Dirge Forge Studios, and I mean, I remember touring with him back in the day with my old band, and we've developed a friendship over the years. And he actually was a second guitarist at the time when I played the session for Gorephobia that time as well.
Oh, wow. It
was a real honor to have him involved, and he did such a great job, and both solo-wise and engineering. So can't say enough. Thanks.
Yeah. I was gonna. I'm glad you mentioned that, because you've got some really amazing guest players on this album, and as the people you mentioned, with Alex and Dan and DJ, and just really incredible stuff. Really, and like you said, it's interesting because each song has this kind of life of its own, and kind of earlier in this interview, you mentioned, kind of those Kiss albums, those early Kiss albums, those solo albums, and I think that it in some ways I think you've captured that in a lot of ways, at least that soul or that vibe of these very solo but yet intricate, still in the vein of Incantation, still in the vein of Chuck Sherwood. And I really love the fact that Alex and Dan and it's really,
it's that those qualities of the material that we have, I would not have ever presented that to Incantation. When something is tried and true for 30 plus years, you can't expect to present things that would overhaul their sound. We are a fickle fan base, and I'm guilty of it as well. If you deviate too much from the specific style that band is, it's no longer relevant. Like if you play jazz all the time and you start to add elements of disco up until it's not jazz anymore, all of a sudden it's fucking disco. It's not jazz anymore. So it would be as equally as stupid on my end if I was to present things to a death metal band and just keep on pushing a black metal angle until all of a sudden it becomes what? I mean, it diminishes it. This I could reserve those pieces of the material, and that's where it all just essentially culminated into what this EP is.
Nice. Yeah. Speaking of lyricism, I wanted to ask you about that. You have a very broad, kind of tapestry of lyricism that I find very fascinating. Obviously there's a lot of influence from Lovecraft. We talked about that before.
I would say primarily when it comes to lyrical inspiration, or at least the things that I've written, whether it be Shed the Skin, Incantation, or even this, is that it's mostly occultism or history. I am an avid history reader as well, and I take a lot of influence from mythologies and folklores, traditional writings, things of that nature, but topics that aren't necessarily talked about too often, especially Incantation. And when it came to Shed the Skin, I was really able to open up and involve even more bizarre topics. is that you know, I've always been the firm believer of like, you know, singing about Satan. Sure. You know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong. I mean, I grew up with like Venom and stuff like that too. I mean, Satan is great.
Yeah.
When it comes to gut lore and the like, there are bands that could do it far superior than I. So I wouldn't even touch on that angle. But when it comes to, you know, thought-provoking things that, you know, I grew up listening to Rhyme and Ancient Mariner, but wasn't really aware of Samuel Coleridge at all. Well, thank you, Iron Maiden. It gave me the first history lesson, and all of a sudden you start, you know, digging deeper and deeper. Well, you know, most of the sets of lyrics over at least the past 13 years have been from various you know, ancient history sources from all over the world, really. And that is the primary source. Lovecraft, sure, he will surface in certain ways, but there are untold amounts of bands right now that use that as their primary influence.
Yeah.
That would then be stepping on their toes in a sense too. You know what I mean? Like, we were an ultra uber Satan band. We were about blasphemy. We were about, like, you know, just, you know, fuck God and everything, which is, again, great, but it does have its limits. And when looking into something that was a little bit more, less spoken of, I started just going all for it. So
yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, I talked to John a while back, and yeah, that was one thing he said. It's like, you know, it's great that we had all these, you know, our lyrics were all about blasphemy, and, you know, as you said, you know, it was all about blasphemy, and then Chuck joined, and then, you know, it's still about blasphemy, but it's
sure, without a doubt,
provoking, and it's this ancient, you know, I mean, you bring in Sumerian mythology and all these other aspects of the ancient world, and paganism, and the occult, which is far more interesting. And I, you know, I definitely agree with that. I find it very fascinating. It's funny because when I talked to Kyle recently, and we both kind of agreed. Hopefully you don't find this offensive anyway. We decided that, you know, lyrically, you know, Chuck, you're a kind of a mad genius. It's like, it's incredible.
They just call me the dork.
They call you the what?
The nerd.
Yeah. The nerd, the dork. Gotcha.
The dork.
Kyle told me that you know, you'll send over lyrics for either Incantation or Shed the Skin, and then there'll be you'll send also an explanation of what the lyrics mean, because because I'm too dumb, I don't know what he's talking about. So it's like, you know, he's got to explain it to me.
Well, you have to associate the description anymore. I found that out the hard way, because I'm telling each particular, and it has a
airplane going by.
Airplane. We're being watched.
That each song is a beginning, a middle, and an end, and then I want to leave that story alone. And with Entrails of the Hag Queen, it's a Balinese witch story, but it's you know, many centuries, if not thousands of years old. So if you take that and you put it into a musical context, now the syncopation and the rhyme scheme and the timing now is going to end up changing. So you need to chop all those little words out. And when you chop out those words, all of a sudden the story starts going. Yeah. So it takes like a certain, like, you put that description in, and then the amendment still follows that particular theme and you know, sequence of beginning, middle, end. And it's interesting to see how it develops. It always turns out better than I could imagine, but also bizarre, because you're hearing your own words that were in your head, you know, coming back at you, and it's always been a little weird.
I agree. I think it's funny. And I mean, anytime an Incantation album comes out, I get very excited because I love the band a lot. And but I'm always, you know, I definitely, you know, throw it on the record player, but I immediately look at the lyrics,
Oh, that's cool.
Chuck is going to challenge me and make me think about things I've never thought about before. And I would imagine kind of the same thing, Nick. You're probably, when, with this project, I would imagine when Chuck said, here's the songs, here's the things I'm thinking of doing, I would think that you probably have those kind of same, I don't want to project on you, but probably the same feeling like, oh, okay, Chuck's this kind of mad genius. What does he have? What is he bringing? What am I going to be doing? This is going to be really interesting and challenging.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've like you said, like I've always been a fan of his writing. I think he's an incredible writer. Just some of the things he comes up with, and even in this project, and even in projects we've been in prior, he wrote a lot of lyrics for, and even though it was like a different style, like it does seem to not matter like what style he's writing for. Like he always finds something interesting to say, which is great. All the lyrics for this record were awesome. All the Incan stuff, I'm the same. I'm super excited to see what he came up with, and you can only say "Hell, Satan" so many times, right? I mean, you gotta, so. Yeah, it's super interesting. I mean, everything, the music, like I said before, like just coming from a bass player's mindset and writing these kinds of things and lyrics and everything was the whole package was, it was awesome. It was awesome to be a part of.
The most recent thing that we just surfaced was a lyric video.
Yes.
And
brilliant.
With that lyric video, that it was also, just to show appreciation for VJS's work, and also that the song is pretty important, personally speaking, just because it's the cynosure of the inner ecliptic. So cynosure was a term used for a star or a focal point. They would usually use it to denote the North Star. So it was a guiding star in order to get its influence. And within the context of the lyrics, they would it also states of Bohemian stars, not to be confused with like Bohemian or anything of that nature, but Bohemian were fixed stars. And it was I believe it was like astrology or alchemy or maybe the combination thereof that would speak of elements that were in relation to that star to do rituals that would in turn get the influence from that star. Where my birth was, I'm Capricorn. And Capricorn being Saturn and also being of the star system of Delta Capricorni, that the light from that star takes 39 years to reach Earth. And it just so happens that when I was writing those lyrics, I was 39 because it was 5 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And the correlation between like mafic stones, it's kind of like volcanism. It's like where stone melts. Also, it's, I believe, a composition of asteroids and the like. I'd have to read up on that again. I kind of forget. It's been a few years. But that also to have Capricorn, Saturn, and then the relationships to myself and how its influence comes into my dreamscapes and my life. And that it's, I had something written in regards to it, to help myself remember this. I hope you can edit this portion out.
Oh yeah, that's fascinating. That's
that it would be being Capricorn. I drew upon all the aspects of my birth, and the mafic stones and meteors consisting of the elements of Saturn is chrysolite. So the Delta Capricorni star system and how its light takes 39 years to reach Earth, being 39 when I wrote the lyrics. The influence it holds as being an end of a cycle and a rebirth, which is what Capricorn always was. That's why they used to name it as the Algaean stable, is that it was a collection of sin, a collection of filth that would rebirth itself because the new year is coming. And that's Capricorn is at the end of the zodiac. And how the subconscious connection will retrace to its origin upon my death, because it's a constant, ever echoing cycle in the cold, unforgiving vacuum of space. And that is primarily what that song pertains to. Wow. So you're watching it, be noteful of like the different elements of Capricorn and Saturn and the actual Delta Capricorni star system and everything, because all of that is very, very personal to myself.
That's fascinating. That's wow.
Yeah, see, it's like, who knows what the hell you're talking about, but it sounds awesome.
But that was the thing, is that for that song, I could take this opportunity to explain it. Whereas the others, I think I'll explain in their due time.
Nice.
Let somebody get what they want out of it first.
I think this dovetails into a question that I had for you, Chuck. And also it'll filter to you, Nick, as well. But starting with you, Chuck, I was really curious about kind of we talked a little bit about your influence historically with your lyricism, but I was curious about songwriters as far as influence, both with bass work and with songwriting. Kind of, those early days of Chuck Sherwood, like who were you were listening to? What kind of melded you into the musician that you've become, especially with writing? I'm really curious about how that happened, and who are the people that, the musicians, the songwriters, the bands that you were listening to, that, you mentioned Iron Maiden and Rime of the Ancient Mariner, but I was curious about kind of other things as far as kind of what you were listening to at a younger age.
At a young age?
Yeah.
You mean? I would say it was Maiden, Metallica, Slayer, Venom. Did I say Manowar? They were big on me. They still are, actually. And it was all of like the new wave style stuff. You know what I mean? Like Cliff Burton and Steve Harris were gods. I wanted to be them. I actually started playing, it was an acoustic guitar, and I had received a fan club promo from Iron Maiden, sent out with a little coupon from like Hit Parader or something like that, send it out. And it came back with Steve Harris, and he was playing 4-string. And I said, that's not what I'm playing. The hell's he doing? So I talked to my music teacher at the time, and he pretty much was like, you're going to limit yourself. You'll never be able to really do anything and expand with that instrument. And I said, well, that's what I want to do. And it progressed into heavier styles as time went on, obviously. I mean, there's many, many, many influences nowadays. It's really kind of endless. A lot of things I caught later in life. The earliest stuff would have been those core bands in particular. By the time I met Nick, he and I were huge into Morbid Angel.
Nice.
Yeah, we were very big fans of that. I would say up into the Covenant era at that time. And I remember actually asking him to come with me to go see. It was Morbid Angel, Fudge Tunnel, I think.
Oh, I forgot about Fudge Tunnel.
And Crowbar. Yeah. And that's who. And I remember that I went. Nick did not. And I don't know whether he was the smart one or the dumb one, because I was grounded for months.
Nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, those kind of bands in particular shaped my interest. But the thing is that I was only classically trained for a few years.
Okay.
And the rest of it became contortions of all of my influence into something that I could make my own.
Nice. What about you, Nick?
Yeah, Iron Maiden definitely number one. I mean, they're still my favorite band. I mean, I listen to them I can go back and listen to them constantly. They're incredible.
Yeah.
But same thing. Like when I started playing guitar, I've never taken a lesson. My dad's like a really knowledgeable guitar player, and he tried to like teach me and my brother, and we couldn't remember like the simplest thing, and he's not the most patient fella. So that was the end of that, and we were like, we don't want to play guitar. Guitar's stupid. And then my uncle, who also plays guitar, was like, hey, do you want to learn how to play the intro to Crazy Train? We were like, yes. How do I do that? That's what I want to do. I don't care about chords. I just want to play Crazy Train.
Yeah.
So from there it was just tablature and training my ear and learning stuff by ear. But yeah, Adrian Smith is, he's up there as one of my favorites. Just incredible melody and Alex Skolnick from Testament. He's definitely my favorite guitar player. I've learned a lot from just kind of learning his solos and different things. And I mean, writing, I just kind of, there's so much music. I have thousands of CDs. I mean, I'm really just a fan of music in general, any kind of genre, really. Well, not any genre, but on the heavier side, let's say.
Right.
And if I think it sounds cool, like I'm into it. If we're writing something and I think it sounds cool, and that works for me. I mean, I don't really think about the theory behind it because I don't know it.
Yeah.
Like me and Chuck played together with a band with the other guitar player who was out of this world guitar player. But we would write stuff and I would write things and he would be like, well, you can't do that. That doesn't work there. And I'm like, yeah, but it sounds cool. Like, who cares?
That guy in particular is exceptional, mind you. Beyond talented. But there would be times where if he was to break structure even remotely, it would like be painful to him. So he'd play the riff and he would go, dude, this digit right here, go like that. And I'm like, kidding me? And he's like, for me, dude. And I'm like, you got it. It would be things of that nature. But nothing to, nothing against his talent. And
no.
Amazing time working with him as well. He was great to work with, and we created some memorable stuff between us, so it's good.
Yeah, and it's good to get challenged by players who are way better than you, like he taught me a ton, and but yeah, like just writing wise or anything, it's just if it sounds cool, I'm into it.
Well, and I would I mean, I don't know about before, but I would say with Occumancy, there's some really intricate, really fascinating stuff that's happening, really complex. It's a very complex album. And I would say the same thing about, Incantation too, with your bass work, Chuck, is there's a lot of really intricate work that you're doing. So it's interesting that and I guess maybe it's not so technical, but it's very intricate, I would say.
Yeah, I would never label myself as being technical in any way. It certainly is. I'm moving off of sounds. I would love to see my old guitar teacher again, actually, for that matter. That when he was saying that I would be limiting myself, I found that it's actually expansive more than any other instrument, but I'm being biased because it is my weapon of choice,
Right.
That you can move with drums, you can move with the guitar, you can root ride with that guitar or follow the harmony. You could go against the harmony or you can play with it. You could harmonize that harmony. The bass can do all of those things. in any song. You can half time it, quarter time it, solid notes. You could be extremely busy and the guitar could be just doing a chord. There's ways that you can add elements of bass to catch your ear at those given moments. Not so much a show-off show, but it's that I'm still here, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, that there are like Neil Murray, for example. He's exceptional. He's tight. He's proficient. He's profound. But he always had a margin and a threshold for where he plays. And that's great for his style. I would never do that. I think that there's ways, whether it be slow, fast, mid-paced, or whatever, that you can have yourself work into it to not be just root riding. And again, it's not to diminish that kind of style of playing. And I might find myself being in something that's so technical that I would root ride. I'd be like, I'm not trying to follow that.
Yeah.
Those kind of elements make that instrument, at least for my part, one of the best. And I think I chose wisely. I'm very happy with it. I don't necessarily play any other instruments, really. I've played classical guitar on occasion, and I wrote a lot of the Occumancy stuff by just kind of noodling with the guitar, but I could never translate it as well as Nick could. So Nick was able to get his hands on the material itself. He actually made it to what I had in my head, but the motor skills couldn't allow.
Wow.
He's not very good with a pick.
I'm awful with a pick. I do not have any control whatsoever. It is the honest truth. He's absolutely accurate.
You mentioned, we talked about this earlier in the interview that kind of this all came out of an idea to do kind of these separate albums of the Incantation guys. What was kind of the impetus of that? When did that start? How long ago did you start writing this material?
So I started to write those songs after I returned from I guess that would have been 2012.
Oh, wow. So this has been a long time coming.
Yeah, this was, we were with Immolation and Nervo Chaos, our friends from down there. We did a number of shows, but not a lengthy tour. I can't recall, perhaps a week, maybe a little under a week. And it was a random idea at the time of like, oh, well, I got a couple of songs and maybe we should all do something. And I guess I was kind of like taken aback at the time because I had never really generated my own lineup in order to create on my own like that before. And I'm like, I don't know if I could do that. And they were like, come on, like just find some, people, and I think even Kyle at the time was like, I'll play drums for you. And I'm like, well, that defeats the purpose, does it not? Like you would want to have your own lineup, and I think what Kyle created with Shed the Skin being that long ago, well, it speaks for itself. I mean, it's exceptional. I mean, he's got like a super group on his hands. I mean, every person in that band is just, it's just staggering. They're good. They to put to quote John, he goes, your band's so good it pisses me off.
They are fantastic.
But that material was written. Yeah, that's how it started. So it was years ago. I don't know the math. I'm sorry. 10 years.
That's interesting. Long time coming.
It's awful to say that. Yeah, so it's almost been 10 years in the making. It's a long time.
Well, and I think that's important. I mean, it's obvious a labor of love. This was, something that was. But
it wasn't to just, I don't know, save myself from the embarrassment of it. It wasn't a consistent effort. This got shelved numerous times and put on the back burner. It's not like I was working, ardently for a decade or doing like a week's worth of work and letting it sit for, 9 years and 10 months or whatever.
Right.
it would surface and then it would get put away again. Then I would revise. And then, so it's a culmination over, I would say more accurately, about 5 years.
Okay. Did you always have the same musicians in mind?
I had no idea. And the only thing I knew, like from the start, was that I wanted Nick involved.
Cool.
Just because, well, like you said, it was a long time friendship and a long time working together, that I knew that he would be able to execute what I wanted from him, and he did, more so. So this stuff in particular, as far as the rest of the lineup, there were other people that I had asked to be involved at one point, and other projects had taken precedence over it, which was fine. And I can't say I blame them, because it was nothing more than an idea at the time.
Yeah.
We know how many ideas never really, culminate to anything, really. So when it was originally presented, I probably would have shrugged it off as well. I would have been like, no, that's cool.
Yeah. Sounds nice, but yeah, I don't know. I got something else going on over here. So.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think once we had like all the songs recorded, like when we finally had it all done, and then you had the guys who were going to do the guest spots on it, like once we had something tangible, I think they turned around pretty quickly, if I can remember correctly. I feel like, but yeah, it's hard when you just have these ideas and you're trying to get people on board. It's tough,
Yeah.
But I think once we finally got, like, he said to me, like, all right, we're going to do this. Like, we're going to record the songs. Like, we're going to send Frank scratch tracks. He's going to record his drums. He's going to send it back. Then we're going to re-record everything perfectly. And once that kind of got rolling and we finally had it all done, and we were like, here, solo over this. Like, here it is. Here's a song. Like, it really started to like come together. Like,
Nice.
It was actually like lightning by that stage, because like all the initial,
he only made me redo my solo like 14 times. Everybody else just sent it first shot. We were like, oh my god, it's amazing.
you always treat,
but he was like, yeah, I don't know, fix that one.
You treat the people that's the worst, right?
Yeah.
Were you able to record this together? I mean, kind of in this pandemic world we live in now, were you able to record this, or was it kind of separate recordings, especially with the guest musicians?
So for Frank being in Holland, we had to file trade regardless. For Nick and I, we're rather close to one another. So it was enough to where we would have hung out anyway. And we were able to apply ourselves for a few hours and then catch up for the following. So it was never, again, like a forced, effort. It was pretty easy,
Cool.
And everything was done in like a studio situation. So I was able to use nothing more than software and interface, and as long as we were able to reamp and have raw files and the like, everything else was cakewalk.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that was our biggest hurdle, like when we finally decided to get moving, was none of us really had used recording software that extensively. I mean, I've fooled around with GarageBand a little bit, but obviously we needed something more powerful. So we both were kind of like, and I mean, he took it on mostly, Chuck. I mean, but we were, I think once we were like, all right, let's do it. And then we were like, oh wait, this isn't as easy as just hitting a button. Like when you go to like a real studio, like we've done before, and they're like, all right, go. And you start playing, like now we have to figure it out, and of course, like, yeah, like there were times like we were supposed to record and we would get sushi and be like, yeah, let's just watch a movie. We'll do it next week. Like, you know, but
that is true. It's with the advent of the technologies that exist, we were just lucky to be able to create things that we do without having to block studio time and things of that nature. I know that sounds like a cop out, and sometimes people believe that it compromises the material by doing that. But this one, I don't believe it lost anything. Because by the time we went into the studio listening to almost like electric banjo for the better part of a year, that by the time we actually heard it reamp, we're like, it's one of those moments. So, sometimes technology can help.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job. I think BJ did a really good job to kind of, because I knew he wanted it, and I knew I kind of wanted it too, like that it didn't sound computerized, like the overall sound of the record, like it had that raw kind of like old time metal kind of sound, which is what we really wanted to have. I'm not a huge fan of overproduced music and like not like following the click to a T, like letting the music breathe, letting it have and we tried to keep it as real as we could. Obviously we had to use clicks and stuff here and there because obviously we're sending tracks to a drummer in a different country, and we can't be in a room together and just record live. But I think I'm really happy too with how the overall sound of the record sounds, given that was kind of what we really wanted to achieve too. If I'm not mistaken, Chuck, I think we've talked about it.
You said it. You said it accurately. The thing is that I wanted to create something synthetically but sound organic.
Yeah.
And I think that we achieved that because the things of like a strict click, it becomes mechanical. And even if we, deviate a little bit from the timing, I don't care. I would prefer to have that reality of, that's just the way it's going to sound. And there's no real strict nature to, whether we're using a certain scale or even being in key. This would also follow suit. You know what I mean? I want that material to be as organic as possible. If it's considered infantile or pathetic by other ears, it's totally their opinion. But it's that it is what it is, and I'm very happy with the way it turned out. So
yeah, I think it's fantastic. I love it. I think it's great.
That means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So kind of finish this up. I just thank you guys so much for chatting with me tonight. This has been a lot of fun. I did want to ask you, and yeah, as you both may know, so my page is Brews and Tunes. I pair craft beer with heavy metal albums. I was curious, on a Friday night, Saturday night, maybe start with you, Chuck, and then we'll go to Nick. When you're hanging out, chilling out, what are you drinking and what are you spinning? What are you listening to?
So I've been drinking bourbon exclusively for years now. Kyle and I discovered the Buffalo Trace Distillery, and it has been no turning back.
Nice.
Love it to death, and I'm even having some right now.
Nice.
As for tunes, as of late, I've been listening to Goblin. I listened to Satyricon today, Celtic Frost.
Nice.
And what else? Atomic Aggression. And Infernal Majesty, actually. I was just listening to them too recently.
So nice. How about you, Nick?
I don't drink actually.
Okay.
Yeah, but coffee.
Oh yeah, there you go.
So
I love
Friday,
coffee.
Saturday night, I'm probably still drinking coffee.
There you go.
I usually just have my iTunes going on random, but I've been listening to the new Ghost record.
Oh yeah. Right on.
That's a guilty pleasure. I'm a fan. Yeah.
No guilt, man. I love Ghost. I think they're
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah. What else? Today I listened to a lot of Black Dahlia Murder today.
Nice.
And this new band I got into called Spirit Box.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, that's pretty much what I've been listening to today.
Excellent.
And coffee.
There you go. Right on, brother. Well, Nick and Chuck, thank you so much for chatting with me today. So anybody watching this, please check out Occumancy. Go to their Bandcamp page. You can check out the music. It is fucking brilliant. I cannot overstate how amazing this music is. It floored me. Really, I'm fascinated by what you guys are doing, and I'm really hoping that. And I know it's tough with your job, Chuck. You don't really do a lot of touring, but I'm hoping to see this band live someday, if that's in the cards, because this is amazing stuff.
Thank you so much for your words, man. I really appreciate that. It's humbling to hear such positive feedback, and thank you for having us.
For sure.
It really means a lot to us. You know, you're the first person to actually interview us.
Oh, cool.
If that is feather in your cap, carry on, sir.
Well, thank you very much, guys. Cheers.
Yeah, thank you.